Steve Sabadeski, publisher of BodyBuzz.com. This morning we're going to talk to Senator Wesley Bishop about the fiscal session, the Louisiana legislative session that seems to have been in session now for almost half the year. Good morning, Senator Bishop. How are you doing today?
Hey, good morning, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So, let's get right into it and tell us your overall overview in terms of what's going on the last days of May, early days of June up there in Baton Rouge.
Well, Steve, as you know, we've been here since February, basically. And on last Friday, we prematurely ended the regular session that we had. The session was scheduled to end the first week in June. But knowing that we have this pending fiscal crisis that we know was coming for quite some time, the decision was made, and I think most folks agreed with it, that we would attempt to end our regular session 2 weeks early so we can get into a special session 2 weeks early and then end, hopefully, all of it right around that same time, the first week of June. So that was the attempt. And so on last Friday, we ended the regular session, only to start the special session on Tuesday at 4 o'clock with the governor's address, which is usually done at the state capitol as a joint address to both the House and the Senate. This time, his address was mobile, and he gave that on the campus of the University of Louisiana at Lafayette, and most of, or a sizable number of the members of the legislature actually went to Lafayette to hear that. Part of the reason why I believe that was done was to really put a spotlight on many of the issues that we're facing. If we don't come up with a budget that makes sense for the citizens of the state of Louisiana, higher education, thus the University of Louisiana at Lafayette, other institutions around the state will in fact be affected. Hospitals will be affected, Medicaid will be affected, seniors will be affected, children will be affected. So I think all of that was spotlighted by having the address mobile actually in the community here in the state of Louisiana. So that's kind of how this entire started, and so we're here now trying to fashion a budget that meets the needs of the individuals here in the state of Louisiana. The budget, or HB1 as we call it, that was passed out of the House of Representatives was woefully lacking in many of the goods and services that are needed on a day-to-day basis. That bill was passed both through the House, both the House committee through appropriations as well as the House floor. Then came to Senate Finance, a committee that I actually sit on, and I could not vote for that budget because it was too lacking in many of the things that are important to the citizens.
Okay, so the very first fiscal session early this year, I think it started in February or early March. But regardless, that was like 2 weeks, and it ended poorly. We couldn't get a solution. The whole thing is, I think that the issue was whether or not there could be a half-penny extension, roughly, whether it was clean, dirty, but I think that was kind of the focus. Do you think that we're closer now than we were back then?
Well, let me say that the focus actually back then was actually what we call like a quarter penny. And just so folks understand exactly what was going on, a year or so ago, or 2 years ago actually, we actually agreed to put in an additional 1 cent sales tax on, and we would do it temporarily. And we made the promise to the public that we would do it temporarily with the promise that we would then come out and do structural changes and structural reforms to figure out a way to solve our problem once and for all. A phrase that you hear in Baton Rouge a lot is what I call kicking the can down the road. And all that simply means is that you have an obligation that's a reoccurring obligation, but instead of making decisions to solve that particular problem, we simply come up with a temporary fix. And then the next year and the year after that, we have to keep coming up with a series of temporary fixes trying to actually patch the problem. So with the 1 cent that we actually had, if that 1 cent was then reduced to a quarter cent and then made permanent or extended for some period of time, that would allow us to actually come up with about $220 million worth of revenue to try and patch many of the holes in Louisiana's budget. If that 1 cent was reduced to even more so, 1/2%, that would allow us to come up with about $440 million, which would then put us in a much better piece in trying to move forward. So that was the conversation that actually took place. But I think the bigger concern is that none of that really solved the entire problem. At that time, we were looking at a $1 billion deficit here in the state of Louisiana. We've now gotten to the point where the Revenue Estimating Committee has said that that number is probably down to roughly right around 670, give or take, $million that we actually need. So whether we come up with the $220 million that will be generated by the quarter cent or the $440 million that will be generated by the half cent, that still puts us $230 million in the hole. And you can't cut your way out of $230 million. So the reality is that even if we use either one of those mechanisms, we're still going to have to raise more revenue to get the $670 million that we actually need. I think that's where the problem lies. Many of my colleagues, and probably more so in the House of Representatives than with the Senate, and it seems as if there seems to be more of a bipartisan collective effort on the Senate part to try and resolve this problem. There seems to be chaos on the House side, and it's unfortunate. As I talk to many of my colleagues over there, I think many of them are willing to do what needs to be done. But for the last 3 years or so, in particular, since John Bel Edwrds was elected governor of the state of Louisiana, there's a lot of individuals who, for whatever reason, just seem on being hell-bent on having him not to succeed. And it's really bothersome because it really doesn't matter whether you're Republican or Democrat. I think the things that we're facing now are in the best interest of the citizens of the state of Louisiana. And that's where we are right now. And during this 14-day period of our special session, that's the problem we're trying to resolve.
Okay, so basically what I hear from, say, the conservative Republicans in the House is that their voters, their constituents, are telling them, do not raise or do not extend any money at all, and so they're just, in a sense, following marching orders.
Well, it's interesting. We all were elected because we speak for people. We were elected because we're supposed to be leaders. And it's always been my situation. Never someone, and first of all, you're supposed to do your homework. And in doing your homework, you come to the table with the base and with the sentiment of the individuals that you represent. So I understand that piece there, but it's been my experience for the 7 years that I've often been there, that whenever someone personally does not want to do something, they just say, well, I'm doing what my people told me to do. When oftentimes I think that really is the sentiment that they actually express. No, I don't think anybody knocked on any representatives or any senators' door and said, hey, oh, by the way, we want you to have to let go, 4,000 people who are working in healthcare. We want you to put elderly people out of nursing homes. We want you to close hospitals. We want you to do things and not be able to fund higher education. We want the $300 million that goes toward CHOP to try to keep individuals here in the state of Louisiana. We don't want you to fund any of that. That's nonsense. No one is asking anyone to do that, and that's going to be the result of this hard line saying, well, we don't want to do any of that. And I think it's much more calculated and unfortunately much more devious than that.
Okay, so let's see. I'm reading a tweet that I'm going to put up on the screen. Unfortunately, you can't see it, but so I'll read it. And basically, it's from the Americans for Prosperity, a very, very conservative group. And we did an interview. Yeah, and we did an interview with them last week, and so John Kay says the governor is renewing taxes that would otherwise expire if not for his failure to achieve tax reform. This proposal is a tax hike and not a tax cut, as he explains it. So that's what John Kay says.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and maybe if I wasn't so close to this process, maybe I could hear statements like that and somehow be foolishly believe that he's actually being honest and being straightforward with that. That's being disingenuous at best. It really is. I mean, there are a sizable number of individuals who serve in the legislature who won't vote to get anything done. It's unfortunate, but it's actually true. And I think what ends up happening is that well, let me just say this. sometimes I'm political correct. I think there's a sizable number of individuals who are hell-bent on trying to make John Bel Edwrds a one-term governor. They're failing. It's unsuccessful. I think it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but for whatever reason, I think that's the mission of many individuals. As I talk to folks in my district and as I travel around the state and talk to individuals, people can see through this ruse. You know, we've seen there, John Bel Edwrds has called 6 special sessions since we've been here in the last 3 years. If that's not somebody trying to get something done, I don't know what it is. You know, but when you have a situation whereby I think you have a majority of individuals on both sides who can attempt to get something done or stand in the way of something actually getting done. If it was up to the Senate as we speak, we'd have a budget deal. We never would have had to be here 6 years or 6 different times in special sessions. But it's so unfortunate. I spent 5 years serving in the House of Representatives. Many of my colleagues are there, dear friends of mine. But when it comes down to trying to get something done, I think some folks are there's an agenda that's being played, and unfortunately, you mentioned the national organization, and oftentimes many individuals, I guess, take their playbook directly from that national organization. Well, look, let's make sure, John Bel, other than the governor of Virginia, is the only Democratic governor in the entire South. There are a lot of individuals who have an issue with that, and it's so unfortunate. We should so be behind that. The people of Louisiana elected him as governor of the state of Louisiana because they thought he was best based upon the option that they were actually given. And he is. He's worked extremely hard. He has a history of service, and it's unfortunate that every day we're here, we're fighting to try and get something done for the citizens of the state of Louisiana. And there's a lot of obstructionists, I think, who are there. But we're here fighting a good fight, trying to make sure that gets done.
Okay, I'm looking at a post right now on Facebook. Lynn Matthews, who's watching this, says that lowering the taxes on businesses will attract more business, thus increasing the revenue. It's a plus for Louisiana. Rachel Cox says, let's see, okay, well, that's dealing with an issue that we're not dealing with that issue right now. We're dealing with the budget. So let's talk, if you don't mind, about, given the fact we only have a couple more minutes, where do you think we stand right now in terms of some type of agreement?
Well, let me tell you, this is what I think. I think that the ideal situation would be, I think everyone, I think, is of the belief that some portion of the penny that was placed on there may in fact have to determine, and the reason why that happens is that there's a sizable amount of revenue that's generated from that, like a quarter cent or 1/3 cent or some portion of that. But I think that needs to be coupled with an agreement, whether or not it's business utilities, whether or not it's corporate tax. I think it's unfortunate that you have a situation whereby whenever it's time to raise money, we tend to attempt to raise money on the back of those who can be supported. The working poor, individuals, who really go day to day trying to make ends meet. And it's difficult for me and many of my other colleagues to go home to our citizens who we represent and say, yeah, we solved the budget problem, but 80% of the money we had to come up with, you're going to have to pay. And then when they ask the question, well, did businesses pay their fair share? Did corporations pay their fair share? And I would suggest to you, I said, most of us have a certain aspect of our personality and a certain aspect of what we represent that's actually pro-business. We like jobs in District 4. We like corporations in District 4. We like individuals be able to work hard and make an honest day's wage. That's why we support the minimum wage and raising equal pay and things along those lines. But to do it and to disproportionately affect those individuals who work hard every day, I don't think that's fair, and I think many of my colleagues don't think that's fair. We're willing to work with the business community. We're willing to work with the labor community. We're willing to work with the education community. We're willing to work with any community that can put this together and put a deal together that makes sense for the citizens of the state of Louisiana and in my area, the citizens of District 4 and the citizens of New Orleans.
Okay, one last question, because I know that you have to go. And that is that I read in the paper today, or at least online version of the paper, and that the Black Caucus may be agreeable to a half-penny sales tax extension.
I'm a member of the Black Caucus. I don't speak for the Black Caucus. Sure. I couldn't touch Randall Gaines is president of our Black Caucus. He does a phenomenal job. He just took the place of Dr. Joe Boyd, who's done a phenomenal job over the last 2 years or so. The Black Caucus is willing to listen to any proposal, but I don't think any proposal is going to be deemed to be worthy if it does not have a coming together of individuals paying their fair share and not disproportionately affected the working poor and citizens in the state of Louisiana.
Okay, so the other side has got to compromise. They're going to have to give something up in order to, so that you can and others can tell their constituents that the budget is not balanced on your back.
Well, unfortunately, over the years, we've always done that. I think oftentimes individuals look to see what they call the path of least resistance. And oftentimes, the path of least resistance, they think that the individuals who oftentimes can't afford to have lobbyists here 24/7 to negotiate on their behalf. Well, they shouldn't have to. That's why we're elected. So there's no way that we're going to set up a situation whereby we agree to some type of deal. At least I won't agree to any deal, that disenfranchise those individuals who seem to be the bad news representative.
Okay, bear with me. I know I said this is the last question. There is one last question that was just posted on Facebook. And again, I know that you have to go. Aaron Christopher asks, which programs are at risk besides HEAL of losing funding, HEAL, of losing funding with respect to budget issue? So which programs are at risk?
Let me just address, I guess, HEAL real quick. There was on last week, there was last week, there was a bill that had already passed the Senate that was on the House side, and an amendment was placed on that would have transferred HEAL's assets to the state of Louisiana and to the governor's office. It was something that the delegation on the Senate side had not seen before it was actually there. So we spoke with the author of the bill and had him to remove that. That was removed, so there's no more danger of that actually happening. There's any number of programs that are at risk. I've kind of touched on them a little bit. I'll touch on them again. There were several thousands of pink slips that were sent out in the state of Louisiana because by law, if we can't identify where the money is going to come by the beginning of the fiscal year, which is July 1, you have to put those folks on notice that they're in danger of losing their jobs. So if you talk to many individuals who work in hospitals and healthcare, they have already received those notices. TOP is a $300 million program that, as of right now, based on the budget that was vetoed, is only funded right now at 70%. That means that those families of those individuals who are trying to go to school would be responsible for coming up with an additional 30% when they thought probably all this entire time they were going to school that would be supported at 100%. Colleges and universities would in fact be affected. And when they're affected, that affects their ability to recruit students, that affects their ability to recruit teachers and professors and do things, provide research, just all the things that make a first-class university a first-class university. So between healthcare, higher education, all the things we always talk about when we're looking for money. What's unfortunate is that, based on Louisiana's Constitution, whenever we're looking for money, the only two places we can look for is in healthcare and higher education. So most of the conversations that we have are going to be focused toward those two areas. Okay.
Listen, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. For those watching or who are going to be watching this later on, at some time today, basically, Senator Bishop is going to be on our panel this evening, 8 o'clock, at St. Charles Avenue, the Eiffel Society. The show is Politics with a Punch. It's Jeff Career and my program, our 16th year anniversary. So we're looking forward to that anniversary event. We're looking forward to seeing you on the hot seat along with a bunch of other people, including Eric Paulson. It's a really kind of a light comic political talk show, and I'm sure that you'll enjoy it. And those people who are there always enjoy it. They almost guarantee to enjoy it. So listen, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I really do. I'm gonna, if you don't mind, hold on 1 second. I'm going to hit a couple of buttons to turn the program off. Okay, bear with me.